Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and today we're talking about my top 10 Deadpool team-ups. So let's get started with number 10, Colossus. So what is it about Colossus that really stands out among the X-Men that makes him such a great foil for Deadpool? Well, there are many reasons, including along his— oh right, fine, whatever, it's because of the movie, okay? We haven't really talked much about the Deadpool movie here on Comic Island, but I'll say right now I really liked it. I think it totally nailed what a Deadpool movie should kind of be about, which isn't so much about structure or a big story, but just a lot of jokes and a laid-back, fun atmosphere. And the use of both Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus were pretty spot on in the movie. The kid was great, but this entry definitely goes to Colossus, whose somber, serious tone worked as an excellent foil for Deadpool to play off of. It's pretty much par for the course for how these two interact in the comics as well. The fact that one is almost hopelessly outmatched against the other is endlessly amusing, yet Wade's resourcefulness can always shine through when he does manage to catch Peter off guard or give him the slip. The movie serves as a shining example of this, yet they have occasionally paired well in the comics too, and if the film is any indication, this is something Marvel should take advantage of more in the comics. You know, if they weren't in that dumb custody battle with Fox. Number 9, Hawkeye. I am reluctant to put Hawkeye much higher on this list because it's really only based on one story. I am of course referring to the Hawkeye vs. Deadpool miniseries, a short yet deviously fun story featuring two characters working together to get a thumb drive or something. I don't really remember because it's not terribly important. What is important is how the story plays out. Hawkeye, who doesn't take Wade seriously at all at the beginning of this story, is so mired in his own drama he neglects to notice a case right in front of him until somebody gets killed over it. That underlying guilt, which Wade is very quick to pick up on and throw in Clint's face, reasoning, correctly I might add, that Wade wouldn't just ignore this case so callously, even though he's the one who's supposed to be the big, dumb, dangerous hero all the Avengers look down on. That guilt and shame Hawkeye feels about this really feeds into the rest of the team up, and it leads to a newfound sense of respect he has towards Wade. So I really like this series and the development between these two characters. It nicely shows the change going on between the two heroes in recent years, with Deadpool becoming more and more of a hero in spite of his internal demons, while at the time it seemed that Clint's demons were consuming him. These are two very different people struggling with redemption in very different ways, from very different places. It makes for good reading when they're forced to work together, and after all is said and done, I'd just love to see it again someday. Number 8, Domino. So this is an interesting relationship. It's not one really based on romance, but where other female superheroes generally just brush Wade's advances off, Domino would playfully return them and never seem utterly repulsed by the guy. I always got the impression she treated Deadpool with a certain level of respect in spite of his appearance, which kinda stands out from some of the other female superheroes Deadpool tends to associate with. Her no-nonsense attitude towards Wade plays out well, and she works as a sort of controlling factor. She seems to be one of the few people who can keep the guy in line, and is also able to keep up with him when it comes to the mercenary or superhero life, making her useful too. I heard at one point these two were apparently dating, though I couldn't really confirm that one way or another. I could see some potential for romance between the two, but otherwise I mostly just like the couple when they are working together. Or that one time when the X-Men really didn't want to work with Wade, so they just had Domino basically work as his babysitter for a while. It's that kind of hilariousness that I can get behind, but also one I think that says a lot about the relationship between Wade and the mutants in general. She's a good character and one that works well with Deadpool. Number 7, Fantomex. Fans of Uncanny X-Force might understand this entry almost immediately, but for those who haven't read this series, well, I'll try and give you some background. Fantomex was the creation of the Weapon Plus program, a sort of offshoot of Weapon X. Him and Deadpool were on a team together called Uncanny X-Force, and they had a lot of great adventures as part of this team. I really don't want to give too much away here, but this series is well regarded for a reason, and you should definitely check it out for yourself. These two are a good pair for a couple of reasons. Their origins are distantly similar, which gives them common ground, but the bond is deeper than that. When they started out on X-Force, there was serious contention between the two, based on issues with the group concerning, morality. And if you haven't read Uncanny X-Force before, you might be surprised with how this plays out exactly, because I assume most of you are going to think that Deadpool was the one causing the problem here. But while most superheroes roll their eyes at Deadpool's antics and shake their fist at his murderous ways, Fantomex is so far off the radar that even Wade isn't comfortable with some of the actions his teammate takes, especially early on in this iteration of X-Force's history. Yet over time, these two formed a sense of respect and understanding with one another. Wade shows some touching moments for Fantomex by the end of the series and goes to some pretty extravagant lengths to help the man that became his friend, and ultimately, I really like how these two work together. They haven't crossed paths in some time, as far as I know, but if they ever do again, I will eagerly look forward to it. Number 6. Spider-Man. What's great about Spider-Man and Deadpool? Well, on the surface, I would have said not much, certainly not too long ago. But I've come to accept these two are actually pretty great together. It does seem counterintuitive until you think about it for a bit. Deadpool is a pretty jokey character to begin with, so pairing him off with the hero famous for making jokes and quips seems almost redundant. And indeed, that is the difficulty with having these two work together, and the challenge any writer has to overcome when dealing with these two characters. Yet the task is far from impossible, the key being that while Spider-Man does make his jokes, he does take the superheroic stuff seriously, while Wade doesn't really take anything at all that seriously. Coupled with a huge difference in standards and morality between the two, and suddenly the whole pairing comes to life. Spider-Man doesn't really approve of Wade's methods, but he can understand the guy's trying to do the right thing, and that, especially lately, his heart is in the right place. Deadpool wants to be a better person, and on some level, Spider-Man can appreciate that. Meanwhile, Wade has consistently shown a lot of respect and admiration for Spidey. He's almost like a fan. It leads to a funny dynamic between the two, with hints of tension, but mostly just an enjoyable ride, often accompanied by a mountain of excellent banter from both superheroes. It's Marvel's currently ongoing Spider-Man Deadpool series that convinced me of this, but there are other good examples of these two working together in the past. It's a fun, shared history and one that always has great potential for future works. Number 5. The Punisher. Frank Castle represents a very serious side of the Marvel Universe, and with great seriousness comes great comedic potential with Deadpool. The double act, or comedy duo routine, is what is being evoked here. It's a classic form of comedy that has been around for a long time because it just works. That's why serious characters like the Punisher work so well when coupled with Deadpool. Not only do they work to show how goofy and out of step Deadpool is with the rest of the Marvel Universe, but it provides laughs of its own in the all-powerful form of juxtaposition. The Punisher works well in this regard, allowing Deadpool to lampoon some of the sillier aspects of Frank's story while also serving as this perfect comedic foil. I liked when they were on the Thunderbolts team together. There was serious blood between the two that got extremely violent, which makes sense given the two characters we're talking about here. That only adds to the tension and humor that these two create, and I'd love to see more of these guys in action together. It's a great and deadly pairing. Number 4. Wolverine. It should surprise nobody to see Logan on this list. These two have been everything from bitter enemies on the opposite sides of battle to close teammates with a strong sense of respect for one another, and pretty much every permutation between those two extremes. Their history is long and storied, yet always entertaining. And the reason that the writers often use this as a go-to team for Wade is because it works so well, so easily. Again, it's that classic comedy duo. You have your straight man, all grumbly and serious, and your comedian, all goofy and nonsensical. It's a team-up that almost always works because the premise is simple and the two characters are perfect for their roles. Wolverine represents one of the most serious and hardcore elements of Marvel, and he serves as a very natural contrast to one of Marvel's silliest figures, and serves this role exceptionally well. The only reason he's not higher on this list is that of all the team-ups here, this one does feel like it might be the most overplayed. And considering what's to come on this list, that really says a lot. One of the benefits of Logan having been dead for the last little while is that we've had a chance to explore some other team-ups in recent history, including Hawkeye and such. Yet in spite of that, Wolverine will always be a great team-up, and one day we'll see them side by side in action, together again. And, even with them having potentially been overused after all this time, I still look forward to that glorious, wonderful day. Number 3. Captain America. So we've talked a lot about different straight men that work well with Wade. But, with one exception we're about to get to in a little bit, it is Steve Rogers that, in my opinion, represents one of Wade's best foils. The upstanding, always on the right side of morality Captain America always works so well against Wade Wilson. There's one story in particular that always comes to mind when I think of these two. See, this one time, this scientist, or someone that called themselves a scientist, put together all these parts of Deadpool that were lopped off over the years and reassembled them into a Frankenstein-like evil version of Deadpool. These two got into a pretty bad conflict with one another that spiraled out of control, and Cap was around trying to maintain order during all of this. And there's one brilliant moment where Steve stands from a distance, surrounded by the police and the army or whatever, and watching a fiery inferno created by Wade, that I think beautifully defines the relationship between these two. The look of disappointment on Steve's face, the way Deadpool is all too aware he's kind of letting Cap down, and the fact that Cap is just going to have to try and explain this to his superiors, it all serves to illustrate the complex state of affairs between these guys. In essence, it's the same relations Wade has with most of the Avengers these days. He wants to impress them, he admires them, but he knows he messes up a lot, and they don't view him that well. And in turn, Cap can see Wade is trying to do the right thing and trying to be a better man, but he just keeps crossing lines that he shouldn't and doing things that Avengers wouldn't. It's a great dynamic that I feel defines these two characters well, and honestly, when they cross paths, I always know it's going to be a great time. Number 2. Kid Apocalypse. Evan Sabiner definitely stretches the limit of what I would define as a proper team-up between superheroes, yet there's no way around it. A kid with all the potential and power of Apocalypse definitely serves as a fair example of a superpowered character that works well with Deadpool. As a clone created and partially raised by Fantomex, this boy and Wade formed a strong bond with one another during the events of Uncanny X-Force. In fact, out of everyone in Evan's life, Wade might very well be the person Evan can count on the most, the one who would be there for him no matter what. Deadpool has shown many times that he would do a lot to help this kid out, as evidenced in the Uncanny X-Force and Axis stories. And Evan, in turn, has shown a lot of affection for his, mentor, I guess? I'm not really sure what exactly Wade is to Evan, but I do like their friendship one way or another. And maybe that's all they are, just very good friends. But it's the kind of friendship based on the very best of merits, of understanding, loyalty, and acceptance for what each person is. These two are flawed. They have both made terrible mistakes and have done some pretty bad things in the past, but they've proven they can be better than what they were created for. There's something very inspiring about that. For a Deadpool team-up, that's a very hopeful and wholesome thought. It's the sort of dynamic that Wade doesn't share with anyone else on this list because the friendship is unique and just can't be replaced. They're a great team together, and to me, Evan is not only one of Wade's best friends, but Deadpool's hand in the boy's growth and development is one of the best things Wade has ever done. And the number 1. Of course it's Cable. It's somewhat reassuring that I always knew this was going to top the list, and my guess is most of you knew it was coming. For me, this is about as close to a consensus as something as subjective as this can get. We've talked a lot about the comedic duo, and while I do think Cap, Logan, and Frank are all great contrasts to Wade Wilson, nobody got nothing on my main man Cable. These two are very different characters, but as we've seen throughout the list, Wade always works well against characters he can make some light out of, particularly when those characters tend to take themselves very seriously or usually have dark, important themes surrounding them. And Cable pretty much represents the apex of these darker, more serious characters. Born out of a bleak future, almost everything Cable does reeks of the utmost importance. In his eyes, everything good about the past is at risk, so there's no line or limit to the man achieving his goals. The dichotomy is the vital lifeblood that defines this relationship. It's Mr. Serious teaming up with Professor Poopy Pants. Captain Thunderdome meets Commander Scratch and Sniff. Lord of the Flies and Lord of the Dance. It's Bird Flu and Okay, I'll stop. It's a sort of team-up you find yourself naturally rooting for when reading their comics, and the kind of thing I just can never get enough of. The two went from a duo forced together in spite of both of their desires into a pair that with true respect for one another and a solid, almost unstoppable team. I don't think there are any two heroes these two quite understand as well as each other, with the possible exception of Cable and Hope, or Wade and Evan. These two working together always works for me, and I cannot emphasize just how excited I am for their inevitable pairing on the big screen. You made a big promise at the end of that first Deadpool movie, Fox, and I expected to deliver. But even then, their shared comics are almost always great, and often well informed by this shared history. I always love when their paths cross, and look forward to the next adventure together, whenever and wherever that may be. And that's the list. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your favorite Deadpool team-ups are, and if you'd like to see more of our top 10 videos, be sure to check out our website. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.